Hi, welcome to VNN. We have with us today a strong voice for Canadians in the House of Commons, Garnett Genuis, a Conservative MP from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta. He is a member of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration and the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Development, and he is a powerful champion for people's rights and in the battle against all forms of discrimination in Canada and across the world. Welcome to VNN.
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction. It's really great to be here and have an opportunity to share about some of the things we're doing.
I know, yeah, it's been about 2 years now. It was before when the pandemic started, I think. Yeah. I remember you coming in and then we said, oh, we won't shake hands, just touch the elbow.
Yeah, well,
how things have changed.
The virus is still there, but it's nice at least that we know more about it. Yeah. And I think we have more ability to manage it while having more normal lives, certainly, than
I think everybody's been vaccinated, and it's hopefully
that and just some more awareness about the strategies. Yeah.
Anyway, so the first question: you tabled Bill C-257 last week,
yes,
to protect the Canadians from being discriminated for their political beliefs.
Yes.
I mean, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we have the Canadian Human Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination, but it does so based on particular identified grounds of possible discrimination. So you can't discriminate against someone because of their religion, because of their ethnic background, because of their sexual orientation, because of their marital status, and there's a number of other criteria. But one of the criteria that is not included right now in the Federal Human Rights Act is political belief or political activity. There's some variation of protection for political beliefs in many provincial human rights codes, but not at the federal level. So it is legal for an employer to say, we're firing you within federal jurisdiction, we're firing you because of your political beliefs, or we're not letting you open a bank account, or we're freezing your bank account because of your political beliefs. And it seems to me a logical extension of of the other human rights protections we have, that just as religion, marital status, ethnic identity, these things are very close to someone's identity, and they shouldn't be discriminated against because of them, the same should apply for political beliefs. Also, I think our society, our democracy is stronger if people are free to express their political beliefs without fear of discrimination on the basis of those beliefs, without worrying that somehow supporting a particular candidate is going to lead to them losing a job or being denied access to services.
But what about radical ideologies? I mean, suppose a person is espousing violence, and I mean, does this protection extend to him or her as well?
No, it wouldn't. So a couple things about the sort of extreme case scenario. Number one, there is a long history of jurisprudence in Canada around human rights that doesn't see any of these criteria as absolute. So I'm protected from discrimination on the basis of my religion. But if I say my religion tells me that I can do certain things that are against the law, then the courts will rightly say, no, there's a limit on your ability to use that criteria to claim the ability to do anything you want. And the other thing is, in the case of employment, there was a long jurisprudence around looking at what's called a bona fide occupational qualification. So if someone's job requires a certain kind of identity, let's say, then you can discriminate. So an example might be if you are hiring someone for a job that requires physical labor. You can't discriminate against someone on the basis of having a disability, but if you're hiring someone to deliver mail or to do physical work for you, you can take into consideration their ability to do that work. A religious institution might want to take into consideration the faith of a person, and the same is true for a political identity. If you've got someone with political values that are not aligned with the central mission of the organization, okay, that's a different case. So for a political office, take into consideration someone's political views. But if it's if it's a grocery store, someone certainly shouldn't be asked questions about.
But will this affect law enforcement agencies? I mean, then they are sort of constrained. They are forced to act within some limits, and they can't act freely.
No. I mean, I think people can't face discrimination on the basis of their political views if their actions are lawful, right?
Yeah. Okay, that way.
But if somebody is breaking the law, know that in the same way that if someone says I'm breaking the law because of my religion, that's not going to fly. If someone says I'm breaking the law because of my political beliefs, it's same thing, right? So
it'll have to be within the bounds of Canadian law in all times.
And because we're amending the Canadian, we're not creating a new law, we're amending the Canadian Human Rights Act. So there is a long established process of interpreting the Human Rights Act in a reasonable way that takes into consideration the balance that's required.
Okay, so now what is this bill, this another bill, Bill C-285? I mean, how does that affect Canadians?
So Bill C-285.
That's a human rights thing?
Yes, this is Dean Allison's bill.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a bill that I've seconded actually.
I saw
so
that,
I'm pleased that my colleague Dean Allison put it forward, and that's about another kind of issue of discrimination. People facing discrimination on the basis of their personal medical decisions. Our party has been clear in terms of recommending that people get vaccinated, but some people have made a choice not to, and our view is at the same time that it is their choice, and yet we've seen people fired from their jobs, denied
bank accounts frozen.
In the context of protest movement there, but then also just for not being vaccinated, people being put on leave from federal government work, and being told they can't even access employment insurance benefits that they paid into for decades, and everybody's story is different. People may have had personal experiences that lead them to be more skeptical of the medical system, and look, we can have dialogue about that, but I think we need to respect personal autonomy as well. So his bill is about trying to prevent people from being fired from their jobs, denied employment insurance on the basis of personal health.
Will these bills be passed?
Well, so I suspect that the Liberals will oppose Dean Allison's bill, C-285, and that the NDP will as well, because they have supported these very authoritarian mandates. My bill, political belief as part of the Human Rights Act, it's not entirely clear where they would stand. We are seeing more instances of discrimination on the basis of political views, and I think there are certain actions that maybe we would challenge them on for engaging in political discrimination. But I think it's a harder bill for them to oppose, because in principle, who would be against trying to stop political discrimination?
So, I mean, we are hearing about this parliamentary trigger to the Magnitsky Act. I mean, what is that really about?
Yes, so this is another private member's bill. We've been very active as Conservatives, putting forward different legislative initiatives to advance justice and human rights. This is in a bill C-281. It's the International Human Rights Act, and this is a bill seeking to strengthen the Canadian advocacy for international human rights and strengthen the role of Parliament in being able to hold the government accountable for that. And so one aspect of that bill is a requirement for the government to table an annual report on the work the government is doing to advance international human rights. The Magnitsky parliamentary trigger, so right now there's this tool the government has for sanctioning human rights abusers called the Magnitsky Act, and it's a great tool for saying if there are specific individuals involved in human rights abuses, those individuals can be sanctioned, prevented from moving their money or traveling to Canada. The problem is that the Liberal government has been very reluctant to use the Magnitsky Act, to actually apply these sanctions to individuals. And we hear often about different individuals in different countries that have been involved in gross violations of human rights who need to be held accountable for their actions. And we want to be able to deter future crimes, because if we hold people accountable for human rights violations today, we're less likely to see a repeat of those crimes in the future. So this creates a mechanism by which parliamentarians could push the government to sanction something. And that mechanism is that if a parliamentary committee adopts a motion essentially nominating someone for Magnitsky sanctions, saying we think this person should be sanctioned or that you should consider applying sanctions to this person. The effect of that is that the minister has to respond within a fairly limited time frame. The government still is free to act. I mean, the government is the government. They should be the ones defining our foreign policy, and if people don't like it, they can vote for somebody else. But at least we have a trigger for Parliament to require the government to answer the question. There are countries with serious violations of human rights going on, ongoing, where the government hasn't sanctioned a single individual. Okay. So there's a real gap there.
When do you think does this involve China and Russia as well? Or
yeah. So the Magnitsky Act has been used more in the case of Russia. But I think it was used too slowly. What we were calling for actually is more sanctions to be applied against those who are investing Vladimir Putin's personal wealth. The more sanctions be applied prior to the further invasion of Ukraine that started in February of this year. If we had been more aggressive in pushing those actions prior to, there's a chance we might have deterred the invasion. And there's been more action in response to that further invasion since. But it really represented a failure of deterrence. We weren't able to, in advance, send the message to Vladimir Putin, don't do this because it will be very, very costly for you. We failed to deter the invasion, and that's the second invasion. Right? The other part of the question in terms of China, the use of the Magnitsky Act in the case of China has been extremely limited. Parliament's recognized a genocide against the
Uyghurs.
The various committees have also called for sanctions against those involved in the repression of Hong Kong, violation of international law there, as well as of human rights. So there needs to be, in the context of Tibet as well, other violations, there needs to be a greater willingness to use the Magnitsky Act. But I mean, we can speak about other countries. There's obviously a lot of concern about the human rights situation in Sri Lanka. And, there hasn't been a single use of the Magnitsky Act by Canada, even though the United States has applied more sanctions. Iran, not a single official in Iran. I mean, that's mind-boggling. Given all the things that have gone on in Iran, that we haven't identified a single person from Iran to put on the Magnitsky sanctions list.
But I think Canada is a bit silent on the Uyghurs question, isn't it? They've not been as vociferous as, say, Ukraine or other regions.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Uyghurs, there's been a sort of a mixed response in that the parliamentary response has been strong, government response has been weak. So our parliament was the first parliament in the world to recognize the Uyghur genocide, but the government still hasn't recognized that. We see many private members' bills coming forward on human rights issues involving China, and yet there has been a lack of government action to move those forward or to put forward government bills. So, people directly elect their members of parliament, and I think sometimes members of parliament are more responsive to what people are asking them to do. But ultimately, we need to hold the party in power accountable for what they're not doing. And I think we need to say part of the case for us as conservatives is that we need a government that's going to really prioritize the defense, promotion and defense of human rights as part of our foreign policy.
Why don't we close these Confucius institutes? I mean, what purpose do they serve here?
So we had the Special Committee on Canada-China Relations that was, we had a very poignant exchange with the head of the Confucius Institute at Carleton University. And I mean, I asked him directly questions about the Tiananmen Square massacre, and he just totally kind of fudged and dodged. And so I mean, I think we need to have stronger measures to address foreign state-backed interference in Canada. But that issue of foreign state-backed interference in Canada, it does require action by various levels of government. It's not just a federal issue. So I think some of these areas of educational cooperation, municipal officials, there needs to be greater awareness about the risks of that kind of influence at the municipal level as well. So I think because at the federal level we deal with national security issues and foreign relations, it's natural that people sort of come to us first, and we need to do better at the national level for sure. But some of these things, like Confucius Institutes, there's a provincial dimension there.
I know. I mean, No, Doug Ford has had a great win in Ontario.
Yes.
I mean, what's the relationship of the federal Conservatives with the progressive Conservatives in Ontario? Is it good?
Yeah,
strong?
I think there's a good relationship, and obviously we're going through a leadership transition process. So I'm sure that whoever the new leader is, that she or he will work to establish that relationship. I guess my view, looking at Ontario provincial politics, and I mean I'm not an MPP here. I'm from Alberta, but the success of that government, and many people have been involved in that success. Yeah. Number one, strong engagement with ethnocultural communities, and the
unions. All the unions are not supporting.
And that's the second thing I was going to say.
Big thing,
is the private sector unions. And Ontario is going to be a key battleground in the next federal election, perhaps the key battleground. And so if we think about it, about building on that success, saying how do we, I mean, these are folks that they voted for a Conservative party, right? So it shouldn't be that far of a bridge to say,
it can transfer easily to the Conservatives.
Absolutely. If you've gone with the blue choice provincially, the blue choice federally, similar values. I mean, maybe some differences, but generally similar values. We just need to sort of to learn from that formula. I mean, I want to give a lot of credit to the provincial team and some of the people on it. Monty McNaughton.
Oh yeah, I know. Very good.
Incredible engagement there. And look, the thing about that engagement is that it was sincere, right? I mean,
that is what it came across as. Doug Ford came across as a very down-to-earth person, willing to go along with the people. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and so I think if it's just about we need your votes, right? Then that's not the basis of a real relationship. But as Minister Monty and working with Premier Ford, they established real relationships and they delivered on it from a policy perspective. And I know on the ethnocultural and religious minority communities angle as well. I mean, my friend Vijay Thanagasalam and his work on Tamil genocide recognition and education. There are so many different champions for their communities within that caucus, and they were listened to and supported by the leadership, and so it wasn't just about saying, "Hey, can we get your votes?" It was about
another thing I think we all noticed was, I mean, Doug Ford and the Progressive Conservatives, they were not pandering to communities. I mean, that's what the Liberals were doing, and the NDP was doing the same thing. They go to different communities and sort of try to appease them and divide them into sort of vote banks, for their own parties. Doug Ford refused to do that. He addressed the entire population of Ontario. I think that attracted a lot of people, including the ethnic minorities as well as others.
Yeah, I think sometimes you get politicians that have this idea about how you do this cultural engagement. People
are tired of it,
and they say contradictory things in different rooms and in a very kind of cynical appeals, and so you have to be.
You can see through them,
and at the same time you have to be responsive to the issues people are talking about. I mean, everybody in Canada is concerned about inflation. They're concerned about the economy.
Those are the issues. Yes.
Yeah, but there are also some communities where people are going to ask more deeper questions about our immigration policy. So that speaks to the need for us to have a strong, effective immigration policy. I think actually we did in the last election. The Conservative immigration policy across the board in the 2021 platform was very, very strong.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, now the Liberals taking credit for this immigration bill C-242. I mean, that's what I think you mentioned that, isn't it?
Yeah. Kyle Seebeck, great MP, great champion of his riding as well as the GTA, and he put forward a bill that would strengthen the super visa. It does a number of things. It extends the tenure. Someone could be here on a super visa for 5 years. They can purchase health insurance from certain eligible foreign providers of health insurance, so there's more competition. It's easier to buy that health insurance. And then also it calls on the minister to do a review of the low income cutoff, because there's a cutoff below which you can't bring someone under the super visa. The reality is, for a lot of families, having that parent or grandparent there helping with childcare it's not a cost, it's actually a net benefit to the family
It
economically,
is.
right? So to exclude lower income people from that, I mean, I think there's some big questions around that. So his bill was right at the committee stage, and the minister announces, hey, good news, here's something we're doing. No mention of the bill,
no mention
right
of
at
it.
it before committee, and then the Liberals actually vote against key provisions of the bill when it's up for debate. And our position was, okay, some of these are things the minister could do without legislation. There's things that you can do through legislation, there's things you can do through ministerial instruction, right? But putting it in the bill ensures that it's going to happen. It makes it law. It's something that can't be reversed. And then I think what they were trying to do is preserve that discretion to say we're going to do it, but we could undo it later, right? And so we want to give people the certainty and the confidence that it's there. And so even though the Liberals they opposed provisions of the bill in the committee, they made the announcement. So there's this kind of bait and switch. And I was just going to say with regard to kind of community engagement in general, there's a lot of virtue signaling from Liberals. There's a lot of promise this, promise that.
We're tired of it.
What I think people are looking for is sustained principle, integrity, and competence in responding to these issues. One of the biggest issues in IRCC right now is just there are massive backlogs in immigration. There's not effective people, not being able to get passports that they need. Like it's just really a dog's breakfast right now, and we need a government that's going to focus less on sending the signal and more on delivering the results.
Well, is the Conservative Party still maintaining its strength in Alberta and?
Yes,
we're Western provinces.
We're strong and growing across the country. I think there's no sugarcoating the fact that we took a bit of a dip in Alberta in the last election. There were some particular local factors around that. I'm confident now, though, with some of the recalibration we've done, that we're kind of headed back on an upward trajectory. And this NDP Liberal coalition.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Very unpopular in lots of different places. I mean, I think there were folks who, and I don't agree with the economic philosophy, but there were folks who voted for the NDP, I think, expecting that party to be a champion of everyday people and to stand up to political elites, and they've just totally sold out their principles.
I think it's best to let them merge and then make it one party, isn't it?
Well, they're continually trying to say, oh no, it's not a coalition, it's not a merger. We're different. We would do some things differently, but in reality, to see in Parliament day to day the things the NDP are supporting that are totally different from what they said in the past. I would just give one example. We were trying to access these government documents about some very serious potential national security issues at the Winnipeg Microbiology Lab.
Yeah, I know.
The Winnipeg lab documents that in the last Parliament we had the opposition parties working together to summon the head of the Public Health Agency and to demand these documents. Those documents weren't provided, and the government called an early election. Now the NDP has flip-flopped. They're siding with the Liberals, working with the Liberals to effectively prevent those documents from
seeing. We have another 3 years to go before the next federal election then, if the coalition doesn't break.
If the marriage holds, right? And I think the NDP are really trying to play this double game where they are going along with the Liberals on
and then criticize also there.
But then they also want to say, so that you hear them getting up and questioning Durian and saying, people can't afford homes, affordability crisis, gas prices. The Liberals are doing nothing, and then we sort of sit there thinking, you guys are enabling this, right? You guys made the deal to keep them in power. You're responsible for this. So they want to vote with the Liberals on virtually everything, while still, when things go poorly, being able to claim some distance. And I don't think it's going to work for them.
As a Conservative MP, do you have anything specific to tell our viewers?
Well, look, it's an exciting time for the Conservative Party. We're going through a leadership race right now, and
600,000, over 600,000.
This is unprecedented. And to put this in context, right? Conservative Party, you have to pay for a membership, and you have to pay for your own membership. In the Liberal Party, it's free. You just go on and sign up and say you're a supporter, check a box, and you're in, right? And still, we have more people that are paid up members wanting to vote in the leadership race than then signed up through the free process when Justin Trudeau was running. So that's an exciting indication about just the momentum that our party has and the enthusiasm that's out there. People are looking for change. There are people who have never been involved in politics before. I mean, clearly with that number, it far outstrips anything we've had before. So there are many, many people who buying a membership has never been on their radar, who have now stepped up and said, I want to get involved in this greater way. So we've got to keep building that momentum. You know, it's going to be important to have unity after the leadership race, to bring together people who support different candidates. And look, candidates are going to fiercely disagree on things, but I think there is a real desire for unity. So I'm excited about the future of our party, and but it's not about us. It's about what we're able to deliver for Canada, for the people of Canada. But I think after 7 years of Liberals, it's become clear the emperor has no clothes, right? There's a lot of pushing of messages of optimism and care, and you often hear them say, oh, we stand with this group, we stand with that group. Well, but what are you going to do? What are you going to actually do and achieve? And there's just been such a lack of results, a lack of achievement from this government. And I think we need to bring back that focus on results, right? On talking to all Canadians about the national interest, and doing the hard work to deliver the results.
I know the Indo-Pacific, I think now they appointed, I think, Indo-Pacific Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
I mean, until then, no other country, they were not invited. Canada was not invited to many of these meetings. And
we're not. I mean, we're not connected with the Quad. You know, there's this new
the Interparliamentary Union of the ASEAN countries and Quad together. There are about 23 or 24 countries involved. Well, Canada is a Pacific country. We should be there.
And I mean this AUKUS deal, the security deal between
that's the thing,
the United States, Australia, and the UK. I mean, we are. You can see this sort of gradual process of, unfortunately, sidelining as new infrastructure grows up. So Canadian engagement on the world stage, effective engagement,
it has reduced a lot, come down a lot.
And again, for the Trudeau government, so much has been about the signal, right? It's about being part of the photo op. It's about having the fancy socks, right? Like what we should be looking for now. And I think looking back over 7 years, it's kind of come out when it kind of becomes clear when there's no results being achieved. You know, we need a government that is taken seriously at home and on the world stage.
Yeah. Well, we have been listening to MP Garnett Genuis, and he has given us a good insight into what's happening in the Conservative Party and in the various bills that are introduced in Parliament. Thank you, MP Genuis. It's nice meeting you. And thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Grateful for the opportunity.